Do you know who these two are portraying in The Watcher? Wanna know? It's Derek and Maria Broadus, the real couple that the Netflix series is about, detailing a letter that was sent to them. The envelope had been mailed via USPS, and they would later discover that it had been processed at the post office less than 2 miles away, indicating it had been mailed from a location not far from the home. The letter began by kindly welcoming the family to the neighborhood, but as Derek and Maria continued to read, the Watcher's warm tone quickly turned threatening. In June of 2014, Derek Broadus and his wife Maria were performing some renovations on their newly purchased 6-bedroom dream home before they moved in. After they were done painting for the evening, Derek went outside to check the mailbox and discovered a white card-shaped envelope along with a few bills. On the outside of the envelope, he noticed that it was addressed to the new owner, written in thick, sloppy handwriting.
I see already that you flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. Tisk. Bad move. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now as it approaches its 110th birthday. I've been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It's now my time. Do you know the history of this house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out.
The real Watcher house is located at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey. Netflix uses this address but changes the zip code from 07090, which is Westfield, New Jersey, to 11537. That's actually Hempstead, New York. The series fictionally states that the home was built in 1921 and has 4 bedrooms, 5 baths, and an in-ground pool. The real house was built in 1905 and has 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and no pool. No, the underground passageway in the miniseries is fictional. There was no secret tunnel in which they saw the Watcher. Also, while the author of the letter states that he or she had been in the house when they were younger, there is no evidence that the Watcher was ever inside the house as an adult. That was added in for dramatic purpose to add to the threat the family is facing in the series. In the series, the couple has 2 children, a young boy and a teenage girl. In real life, Derek and Maria had 3 younger children, 2 girls and a boy, who were 5, 8, and 10 years old at the time they moved into the house. Yes, the residents of Westfield, New Jersey have compared their town to Mayberry, the family-friendly setting for the Andy Griffith Show. However, that's not to say the community has never been rocked by a crime. Several years before they moved into the Watcher house, Westfield resident John Lisp murdered his mother, wife, and 3 children in their home. It shattered any false sense of security the residents had and put the community on edge for some time. Yes, the mysterious author of the Watcher letters began the first letter with the salutation,
dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard. Allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood.
This greeting seems to indicate that the author is a neighbor, since he or she greets them as such and is welcoming them to the neighborhood. Later in the letter, the writer asks,
"Who am I?"
and states that they might be in a car that drives by, in a window that looks at the house, or one of the many people that walk by 657 Boulevard each day. By the second letter 2 weeks later, the author knew their last name, only it was misspelled Braddus, which could mean they overheard one of the contractors using it or heard it from someone else. The watcher's second letter also referred to the Broadus' children by their nicknames and birth order. This almost certainly meant that the individual either lived close by or was lurking near the house when Maria had been yelling their children's names as they were playing in the backyard. The writer also indicates that they had seen their daughter inside an enclosed back porch using an easel.
"Is she the artist in the family?"
The watcher asked. As noted in the New York Times Magazine article, the porch was hidden from the street by vegetation and was hard to see unless someone was in the backyard or right next door. Yes, Derek initially became suspicious of a couple on the block who he brought inside for a tour of the renovation. The wife commented, "It'll be nice to have some young blood in the neighborhood." Derek recalled in the letter that the watcher had referred to his children as young blood. Weeks later, there was a barbecue party across the street that was being held for him and another new arrival to the neighborhood, the Schmidt family, who lived 2 doors down from the Broaduses. John Schmidt told Derek about the odd family who lived in between them, the Langfords. Several of the adult children lived there with the matriarch of the family, Peggy Langford, who was in her 90s. Derek became especially suspicious of Michael Langford, the adult son who John Schmidt described as being kind of a shady character. He learned that the Langfords were one of the only families in the neighborhood to have lived in their home since the 1960s, when the watcher said his or her father began observing the Broadus' home. The patriarch, Richard Langford, had died 12 years earlier, which is in line with when the watcher stated he or she took over the role of observing 657 Boulevard. The Langford's home also had a clear view of the easel in the Broadus' enclosed back porch, which the watcher had commented on in the letter. However, Michael Langford's brother Sandy said that Michael had been diagnosed with schizophrenia as a young man. Others who knew him said they didn't think he was capable of writing those letters. No, this is one of the major differences from what's seen in the series. Instead of moving into their new home, the family decided to move in with Maria's parents. Their new home sat empty as they paid the mortgage and property taxes. They only told a limited number of friends the truth. When others asked why they weren't moving in, they responded by saying there were legal issues, leading people to assume they were getting a divorce. Just 6 months after the first letter arrived, they decided to sell the house. They listed it in February 2015 for $1.5 million. They paid $1.3 million. They tried listing it for more than they paid given the renovations, but potential buyers shied away due to the rumors swirling around the house. After negotiating, the home was later sold for $959,000 in July 2019, a major loss given the purchase price and renovations. With the help of money borrowed from family in 2016, the Broaduses purchased another home in Westfield at an undisclosed location using an LLC to keep it private. Maria wanted to stay in Westfield, the town where she grew up, and didn't want to uproot the kids despite her husband Derek wanting to leave. Yes, the former owners, John and Andrea Woods, both of whom were retired scientists, had received a letter from the Watcher. They described the letter as being odd, stating that the author's family had been watching the house for years. Prior to closing on the sale of their house, the Woods hadn't disclosed to the Broaduses that they too had received a letter. They only revealed that fact after Derek and Maria emailed them and asked if they knew about the Watcher. Yes, he confessed to New York Magazine that he was responsible for delivering the letters that several families received on Christmas Eve. One of the families he delivered a letter to lived a few blocks down. They had posted on Facebook, "I wish we can go back to the days of tar and feathers. I have just the family in mind." According to Derek, he had become fed up with the false accusations against his family and explained they were all speculating inaccurately. He signed the type letters, "Friends of the Broadus' family." He said that he wasn't proud of what he did, nor did he tell his wife at the time. Yes, investigators analyzed the DNA on one of the envelopes and discovered that it belonged to a woman. They first looked at Abby Langford, the sister of next-door neighbor Michael Langford. Abby worked as a real estate agent, and they figured she might have been upset that she didn't get the sale. However, when they ran her DNA from a water bottle she used at Lord & Taylor, her second job, it wasn't a match. Despite possibly narrowing down the gender, the Watcher's identity remains unknown.